What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Freedom Fire Podcast, where we want to stoke the flames of freedom every single day. My name is Kendall Woman, and ladies and gentlemen, we got a couple stories for you guys tonight. The DOJ has found Joe Biden guilty of keeping classified documents that he was not supposed to have, but they have decided not to charge him because the dude's brain don't work. Yes, that's right. They found that he was not willfully able to be a part of any illegal activity, which, yes, that is very scary for our country because we have a corpse leading our country. But we're going to get into that. And then, of course, the second story today is the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court justices took the Democrat opposition that is attempting to take Donald Trump off the ballot in Colorado and many other states, but especially Colorado for this specific case. They took the Democrats to the woodshed. Now, when I say woodshed, I mean what you would see when you see an animal on the side of the road that has been ran over multiple times by multiple different vehicles, including, but not exclusive to, multiple 18-wheelers. Okay, it was a bloodbath. It was quite bad, but we're going to get into that. First of all, make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe if you like this channel, if you like this content, and that right there is the end of my begging. Okay, we're going to get into this with this story from the Daily Caller. Special counsel finds Joe Biden willfully kept classified information and declines to pursue criminal charges. Oh boy, let's get into it. Special counsel Robert Hur concluded his investigation into Joe Biden's handling of classified documents and declined to pursue criminal charges. Hur found Joe Biden willfully kept English is hard, apparently. Kept classified documents related to U.S. foreign policy in Afghanistan and written notebook entries concerning sensitive national security matters. His special counsel report states, nonetheless, he concluded criminal prosecution is not warranted for now president who kept the documents as a private citizen after his vice presidency concluded. We conclude that no current criminal charges are warranted in this matter, Hur said in the executive summary. The Daily Caller initially obtained a copy of the report's executive summary prior to its disclosure by the Department of Justice. Our investigation uncovered evidence that President Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified materials after his vice presidency when he was a private citizen. These materials included marked classified documents about military and foreign policy in Afghanistan, and notebooks containing Mr. Biden's handwritten entries about issues of national security and foreign policy implicating sensitive intelligence sources and methods, Hur added. FBI agents recovered the materials from Joe Biden's Wilmington, Delaware estate. Hur cited the DOJ policy surrounding prosecuting a president to justify his decision not to prosecute President Biden. Classified materials span President Biden's decade-long career in the Senate and his vice presidency under former President Obama in 2009. Then Vice President Biden notably opposed Obama's surge of U.S. troops into Afghanistan and retained classified materials documenting his opposition to the troop surge, Hur's report says. Excuse me. Biden's notes during the Obama administration regularly covered materials from daily briefings and National Security Council meetings. He kept the notebooks in unauthorized spaces inside his Delaware and Virginia estates, Hur's investigation found. Some of the materials from his notebooks were used in his book, Promise Me, Dad, and Biden appears to have shared classified information with the book's ghostwriters. Wow, that is insane. Hur's team does not believe classified information was included in the book. I was pleased to see they reached the conclusion I believed all along they would reach, that there would be no charges brought in this case and the matter is now closed, President Biden said in a statement after the documents were released. I cooperated completely, threw up no roadblocks, and sought no delays. In fact, I was so determined to give the special counsel what they needed that I went forward with 5 hours of in-person interviews over 2 days in October 8th and 9th of last year, he continued. I just believed that's what I owed the American people so they could know no charges would be brought and the matter closed. And then you hear this. The DOJ is prosecuting former President Donald Trump over his handling of classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. Rules for thee, but not for me. Trump kept sensitive information covering national security matters during his administration and faces 40 criminal charges as a result of an investigation by special counsel Jack Smith. Trump pleaded not guilty to the classified documents charges and awaits trial. This has now proven to be a two-tiered system of justice and unconstitutional selective prosecution, Trump said in a statement. The Biden documents case is 100 times different and more severe than mine. I did nothing wrong and I cooperated far more, Trump continued. Deranged Jack Smith should drop this case immediately. Election interference. Henry Rogers contributed to this report. Now, the official reason why the DOJ decided that they were not going to press charges against Joe Biden was that they said his brain is, let's just say it like this. His memory is so poor and his mental capacity is so poor that he could not have willfully participated in any of this illegal activity. That is what they are claiming. Okay? Now, we all know that ultimately this was done over multiple years. This was done during his time in Congress, and this was done during his time as vice president. His brain hasn't not been working for that long. Okay? So these crimes took place over a period of several years. He still needs to be punished. His brain worked at the time. Okay? It's only recently that we've started to see a pretty significant decline in Joe Biden's mental capacity over like the past, 4 or 5 years. Okay? Well, maybe 4, 5, 6 years. But when Joe Biden was vice president and when Joe Biden was a member of Congress, the dude's brain worked. Okay? The dude's brain worked quite well. Okay? I don't buy that his mental capacity at the time of him doing these things is why they're not charging him. Now, ultimately, the DOJ has just stated, however, and we all can see that as of right now, Joe Biden's brain don't work. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think about what they just said. Joe Biden does not have the mental capacity to willfully make his own decisions. Okay. That right there is perfect grounds for the 25th Amendment. It is perfect grounds for the 25th Amendment. Now, I personally could easily see many Republicans in Congress latching on to this exact statement that the DOJ made, saying that dude's brain don't work, essentially. And, excuse me, my goodness. Bear with me, I'm getting over a cough. I could very easily, my goodness. Excuse me, guys. Gonna get a glass of water here. Goodness, I gotta get over this cough, guys. It's crazy. I could very easily see many Republicans in Congress latching on to this exact quote from this exact statement from the DOJ and saying, well, if he's not willfully able to make these decisions, why is he next to the nuclear football? Seems to be a pretty good question, if you ask me. That's a pretty good question. Why does a guy whose brain don't work, why is he allowed to be next to the nuclear football? Why is he allowed to lead our country? Why is he allowed to make military decisions? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? Why is this guy still in office? Ultimately, what we have seen, and we know this from many former reports, is that if Joe Biden is out of the race, Kamala Harris is all they have. Kamala Harris is all they have. And I don't know if you guys know this. I don't know if you guys remember The last election, the last primary that Kamala Harris was involved in, she performed very poorly. She is very unpopular. Okay. Not even the Democrats like Kamala Harris. Okay. So, needless to say, it's the rabbit is out of the hat, guys. The rabbit is out of the hat. Ultimately, I don't see how Joe Biden can win the presidential election. It's over. It's ultimately over at this point. Now that this is out, this is only going to pull more people away from Joe Biden. And ultimately, if the Republicans do choose to try to 25th Amendment Joe Biden, I don't know if it would work, but if they tried it and they were able to succeed, well, you end up running against Kamala Harris maybe, somebody that they'd have to throw into the ring at the last minute and, string together a campaign. I don't know. But the likelihood is whoever they throw at Donald Trump will lose. Okay. I don't know where we go from here. Ultimately, I think that the election, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, I think the election is largely secured for Donald Trump if, and this is a big if, okay? Don't just listen to what I said and be like, oh, well, I guess Donald Trump won. I guess I don't have to go vote. No. The election is secured for Donald Trump if Republican voters don't get complacent. That is how this election is secured for Donald Trump. After stuff like this, I'm sorry. It's over. It's over if you don't get complacent as a Republican voter. If you get your family, get your friends registered to vote, and when it's time to go vote, you go vote in force, in mass. Get out and go vote. Go early vote. Go vote on election day. Don't really care. Just go vote. And you make sure that the shenanigans that they try to pull on election day, make sure that the system is overpowered and those shenanigans are fruitless and they don't work. Now, when it comes to what happens with Donald Trump, ultimately, I think Donald Trump will be exonerated. I think that he will be found not guilty of all these charges. I think that ultimately this is going to be a nothing burger, But if you couldn't see the disparity, the difference in our legal system before this, you can now. You definitely can now. I mean, my goodness. They found that he willfully kept classified information while he was in Congress and while he was vice president. Neither of those positions are legally allowed to keep the classified documents that he had. Neither of them are legally allowed to have those. Now, compare that to Donald Trump's case where he was president and he is legally allowed to have classified documents, just like Obama does, just like Bush still does, just like Clinton still does. They all do have classified documents that they took from their presidency. They all do. So Donald Trump does the same thing, and they try to throw him in prison for it. If you couldn't see the disparity, you can now. You can now, guys. Now, ultimately, I think that Donald Trump is likely going to win. All this stuff that the Democrats tried to pull will be for nothing. Trying to get him removed from the ballot, trying to put him in jail, all that. I think it's all going to be for nothing. And I think ultimately Donald Trump is going to win the 2024 election. Speaking of Donald Trump, oh boy. Oh boy. We got to get to this story. Oh man. Excuse me. From The Independent, Supreme Court appears set to strike down Colorado ruling to kick Trump off the 2024 ballot. Appears set to strike down Colorado ruling. That is an abuse of language, my friend. That is an extreme abuse of language. The Supreme Court was so fed up with the Colorado lawyers trying to get Trump off the ballot that at one point there was a justice who was saying, no. If you don't have an answer, it's okay. I'm going to ask the question again. Answer the question. If you don't have an answer, it's okay. There were multiple points. I mean, goodness, even Ketanji Brown Jackson, even Ketanji was just fed up. She literally was like, okay, here's a list of people who can be prosecuted, who can be kept off the ballot, who cannot hold office under the 14th Amendment. Do you see the president on there? No? Then what are we doing here? I'm paraphrasing, of course. That's not exactly how she said it, but I can imagine that's what she was thinking. What the frick are we doing here? So, for those of you who have not been keeping up with this case, Colorado is arguing that the 14th Amendment, the insurrection clause in the 14th Amendment, keeps Donald Trump off the ballot, even though Donald Trump has never been charged with the actual crime of insurrection. Yes, you can be charged with that. That is an actual crime in our legal system, okay, that you can be charged with, okay? He has not been charged with insurrection. And ultimately, there was no, he was not impeached for insurrection. I don't think he was. So what are we doing here? You got to impeach him first, and then you got to charge him, and then he's got to be found guilty. Other than that, you can't put the guy, you can't take him off the ballot. What are we doing here? So not only has he not been charged with insurrection, but they're stating that the justices are like, okay, here's a list of government positions that apply to the 14th Amendment, to the insurrection clause, and the office of the president is not on there. Okay? Now, here is the reason why the office of the president is not included in the 14th Amendment insurrection clause, because it applies to like members of Congress, to officers that are appointed by the president. Obviously, an officer cannot be the president because those are appointed positions. The president did not appoint himself. Okay. The reason why the president is not included in the 14th Amendment is because if a president committed, insurrection against the United States, we all get a say in whether we want to keep him on the. When it comes to members of Congress, not all of the states get a say in whether that person is in office. When it comes to officers, not all the states get a say. Only the president gets a say. That is why those positions are mentioned in the 14th Amendment. But the president, the office of the president, all of the states get a say in whether or not that person gets to be president. So, if the person committed insurrection against the United States, he's not going to get voted in. That's the reality. This is why the office of the president was kept off or kept out of the 14th Amendment insurrection clause. But let's get into this. Let's go deeper into it. From The Independent, U.S. Supreme Court justices appear to doubt state authority to disqualify Donald Trump from holding public office after the former president challenged a landmark court ruling from Colorado's highest court, which found him ineligible for the presidency due to his actions surrounding January 6th. What, you mean like telling people to go home telling people to peacefully and patriotically make their voices heard? You mean like that? Those actions? No? Okay. Cool, I guess. Last year, justices on Colorado Supreme Court disqualified Mr. Trump under the scope of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which holds that no person can hold any office, civil or military, under the United States if they engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same. That under the United States is very important because it's mentioned in other amendments in the Constitution. And if the Supreme Court were to find that Donald Trump is, that the states can remove Donald Trump from the ballot, not only would that cause a myriad of problems for our elections going forward, because all of the states would just unilaterally decide, oh, I don't want this person on my ballot, therefore we're basically not a country anymore at that point. But this under the United States phrase is used in other amendments in the Constitution. And if they were to say that the states can, if they were to agree with the Democrats in this situation, it would have massive problems. It would cause massive problems for other amendments in the Constitution. But both conservative and liberal justices on the 9-member U.S. Supreme Court on Thursday appeared to cast doubt on the ability of individual states to disqualify federal candidates without permission from Congress. The justices will issue their decision in Trump v. Anderson at a later date. It's suggested that decision might come on Tuesday at the earliest, I think. But let's get into it. Chief Justice Roberts said granting states control over candidates for federal election would be at war with the Constitution and warned that a decision to disqualify Mr. Trump could open up attempts to disqualify candidates on the other side. That's exactly what I just said. We will essentially not be a country anymore. The states will just unilaterally decide based off of, political mindset and political agendas. Oh, this person goes against my political agenda. Off the ballot. Goodbye. And at that point, we're essentially not a country anymore, because the red states will have their president and the blue states will have their president. And probably end up going to war over something like that, man. Like that's I don't know, dude. That's insane. The idea that they would seriously try to say that the states can just unilaterally say, oh, whatever, I don't like this person. This person did this thing, so they're off the ballot. No, states do not get to decide who is on their ballots like that. That is not how this works, especially for the office of the president. In very quick order, I would expect that a goodly number of states, goodness gracious, that's funny, that a goodly number of states will say whoever the Democratic candidate is, you're off the ballot, he said, and it will come down to a handful of states that will determine the presidential election. Why should that be the right rule? Asked Justice Elena Kagan. Why should a single state make that determination, not just for their own state, but for the whole nation? Justice Sonia Sotomayor, however, called Mr. Trump's legal argument a bit of a gerrymandered rule designed only to benefit your client. Oh, please. Justices spent relatively little time trying to define insurrection, let alone whether Mr. Trump had engaged with it after a mob of his supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol to block the certification of 2020 presidential election results, fueled by his ongoing baseless narrative that the election was rigged against him. It is not a baseless narrative. We, of course, have the Time magazine article where they outright say that there was a shadow campaign, a conspiracy to save the 2020 election from Donald Trump and to get Joe Biden elected. Talks about how corporate entities and politicians in office came forward to get rules changed that put things in favor of Democrats. So you have a Time magazine article stating that all of this happened, yet they still say it is a baseless claim. while calling on his reporters to fight like on his behalf. Ah, yes, they say, oh, he said to fight. Okay, let's just solve this right here. They are using the insurrection clause in the 14th Amendment to say that he committed insurrection. Now, you might ask, why was the insurrection clause put into the Constitution? It was because back in the 1800s, the 1860s, several states decided to bear arms against the Union and rebel in an armed rebellion where they took up guns and killed people. Okay? This is why the insurrection clause is in the Constitution. Not because some idiots went to a building and did a riot. It was because armed, rebellious states rose up and killed people in a vicious war. Ladies and gentlemen, these people are saying that a riot is the same as the first Civil War in America. And I said first because we're very close to the second. I'm not joking. We got the stuff going on at the border with Texas, guys. Listen. I wish I could say we weren't, but we're right there, okay? Mr. Trump's attorney, Jonathan Mitchell, argued that even an admitted insurrectionist could still be allowed on the ballot and be elected to office, and that it's only up to Congress to decide whether that candidate should be removed. Attorneys for the former president have argued that the Capitol attack was only a riot and that Mr. Trump didn't engage with anything resembling insurrection. Mr. Mitchell argued to the justices that an insurrection needs to be an organized, concerted effort to overthrow the government. That's exactly what I just said. These states rebelled, they seceded, and then they took up arms against the Union. That is an insurrection. That is a rebellion. This is why the insurrection clause was put into the Constitution, not because some people stormed a building and started a riot. That's not how this works. These things are not like each other. They're not the same thing. Let's continue reading. A chaotic effort to overthrow the government is not an insurrection. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson fired back. Ah, yes. They tried to say that he was trying to overthrow the government. Okay. We didn't concede that it's an effort to overthrow the government either, Mr. Mitchell said. This was a riot. It was not an insurrection. The events were shameful, criminal, violent, all those things, but it did not qualify as insurrection. But Ms. Jackson also questioned why the office of the presidency is not explicitly named in the 14th Amendment and doubted whether its authors would have designed a system that could result in interim okay, English is hard, don't judge me, disuniformity in U.S. elections. That's exactly right. That's exactly what I just told you. They would not have designed this system where you could have this chaos in our U.S. elections, where each state would just be able to decide unilaterally, I like this person, I don't like that person, so that person's going to be off the ballot. You have no country at that point. The founders would not have designed it in this way, or at least the writers of the 14th Amendment would not have designed it this way. This is the reality. The 14th Amendment was placed in the Constitution because of a civil war. That is what is considered insurrection. That's what is considered insurrection. Open rebellion. Open rebellion. Armed open rebellion. That is what is considered insurrection. Not some unarmed idiots breaking windows at the Capitol building and fighting with cops and breaking down barriers. That's not how that works. These are not the same thing. Justice Neil Gorsuch argued that the Constitution speaks candidates who hold office as opposed to those who are running for office. But plaintiff's attorney Jason Murray said that the insurrection disqualifier has existed since January 6, 2021, when President Trump engaged in insurrection. So this Jason Murray, the attorney for the plaintiffs, is stating that since January 6, he has been engaging in insurrection. He has engaged in insurrection on January 6th, and since that day, he has instantly been disqualified from holding office forevermore. Since that day. Now, of course, I believe it might have, no, it wasn't so, it was Neil Gorsuch, I believe. I believe it was Gorsuch. He kind of fired back at this, and he said, well, if he was disqualified from that very day, then that means that he would no longer have been the president at that point, right? So then who's to say that after that day, what's to say that anyone has to follow his orders? So what you're saying is that the Republican, the right-leaning individuals in our government would have continued to follow his orders, and the left-leaning individuals would have stopped following his orders, and you would have had a civil war right then and there in our government. Ladies and gentlemen, do you see how dangerous what these people are arguing is? Now, I'm not going to go ahead and read this entire article. It's a very long article. There was lots of arguments that went on today from these justices and from these lawyers and from, attorneys and whatnot. You can go read, excuse me, you can go read this entire article for yourself. Ultimately, what you need to understand is that Colorado has no argument. They have no real argument. Even the liberal justices were like, this is insane. This doesn't make sense. And many people are expecting that this very likely could be a full 0-9 sweep. Like all the justices just smack this down instantly. And like I said, this could be done as early as Tuesday of next week. Guys, things seem to be looking up slightly as we move towards the November election. Things seem to be looking up slightly. I try to be optimistic. I try to inspire people here on my show. I try to, show people that it's not all bad. There's still hope. There's still things that we as Americans can do to take our country back. And ultimately, we're seeing it. All of the shenanigans that the left has put forward, all of the insanity, literally trying to tear our country apart. This decision, if the Supreme Court were to side with Colorado, would destroy our country. It would destroy our country. I mean, you seriously think after what Biden has done that if the Supreme Court sides with Colorado, you seriously think that after what Biden has done at the border, that Texas is going to keep him on the ballot? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He will be off the ballot like that. Done. Instantly. And Donald Trump will win in that state. No questions asked. And there will be many other states that do the exact same thing. And voters will be disenfranchised. There will be fighting. And there will likely be war because of it. Shoot. It could go much further than that, honestly. Guys, the insanity that these people are trying to bring on our country is falling apart. Or at least from what we saw today in these arguments, it seems to be falling apart. Now, I don't know what the future holds. I'm not a fortune teller. I'm not a prophet. But ultimately, things are looking up. So, guys, keep your heads up. Keep praying, keep fighting, keep speaking out, keep speaking up for the truth, and keep bettering yourself every single day. Because ultimately, I think we're going to win this. I think we're going to win this, and I think we're going to take our country back. And ultimately, it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while to fix a lot of these problems that we have in our country. But I think we have the will, and I think we have the way to make it happen. I'm going to leave it there, guys. I will have another video coming for you guys, most likely on Monday of next week. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment down in the comment section, and share the show with your friends. Follow me on all the socials down in the description, and hit that notification bell so that you can be notified whenever we put out new videos. Protect your family, protect your friends, love God, love people, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.